Now welcome to another edition of Battle of the Heroes and Villains, where this time we'll be taking a look at the results of the poll for Darth Plagueis. We'll then compare his results to all the other characters we've done thus far, before I then read and respond to some of your comments. But before any and all that, you can already head down to nominate and or vote for which character we'll do next by responding to my pinned comment with a character name, or voting with a thumbs up if the one you'd like to see is already listed. Whatever single comment gets the most votes in the next 24 hours or so will be the winner and the character we do next. Alright, and on with the show and on to the results for Darth Plagueis, where we'll see that 42% of voters gave him an A, 32% went with a B, 18% of voters thought he was a C tier character, which left 4% to give him a D, and a final 4% to give him an F. And so when we do all the math here and consider A a score of 5 and F a score of 1, that means Darth Plagueis the Wise ends up with an average score of 4.04, which puts him into a four-way tie for 24th place along with C-3PO, Galen Merrick, aka Starkiller, and Cad Bane. And to start to figure out or discuss why he ranks where he does, let's get to your comments. But not before once again just taking a moment to say thank you to everyone who votes, comments, and watches these or any of my videos. It is all greatly appreciated. Also a big thank you as always to everyone who supports this channel and what I try to do here over on Patreon. And now without further ado, let's once again begin with the top rated comment, which this time came to us from Didion, who said, "He is one of the most influential characters in Star Wars, although never being shown on screen. The tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise is still my favorite scene of any Star Wars movie, B+. And though I don't know that it's my absolute favorite scene in all of Star Wars, that has got to be the Jedi Fury scene, the culmination of the Vader, Luke, and Palpatine confrontation in Return of the Jedi. The music gets me every single time, as does pretty much everything else about that scene. But anyway, the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise is still easily one of my favorites, and probably one of the best scenes in the whole prequels. And the crazy part is that it's literally nothing more than one character telling a story to another one. One of the best scenes in a franchise called Star Wars is two guys enjoying an evening at the opera together and just telling some stories. Which isn't to say people don't love any and probably pretty much all of the many great action scenes in the franchise. They of course do. Instead, as Alonso Sandoval pretty much brings up here, I think the love for the scene says how much the lore of the galaxy intrigues and fascinates people. How eager fans are to learn more about the history of, or the history between the Jedi and the Sith, because in the films we learn virtually nothing about the past. The most we really get about either of them, the Jedi or Sith, is Kenobi telling us the Jedi have been the guardians of peace and justice for 1,000 generations before the Dark Times, which is a cool yet pretty generic line or history lesson that gives us zero detail about, well, anything. Add on top of that the fact that the word Sith is never even uttered in the original trilogy, outside of a deleted scene. And you end up, or at least I ended up, on the edge of my seat the first time I heard Palpatine tell that story, because it was the very first time, in the films at least, lots of lore in the EU of course, but it's the first time in the films, the first time George Lucas himself, you could say, gave us any sort of real history at all, not counting the fact that, yeah, the prequels are the history of the original trilogy, you could say. Anyway, not only is it our first real kind of history lesson, and not only is it brilliantly and captivatingly told by Palps, or acted by Ian McDiarmid and Hayden as well, but it's the story about this ultra-powerful Sith who sought immortality and had only one fear, losing his power. And then he of course ends up getting killed in his sleep by his apprentice, who we can pretty much assume as we're listening is indeed Palpatine or Sidious. And one of the things I love is how everything about this scene, everything about this story, it just encapsulates who and what the Sith are kind of perfectly. It's also heavily implied that Plagueis, in his pursuit for immortality, created Anakin. At least that's the takeaway I think we can come to when Palpatine turns his head and looks at Anakin with that sort of ominous look, but Anakin is too busy worrying about his wife and what this all means to even realize what's going on. Which is so very ironic or fitting because Anakin is then the one who actually goes on to destroy or end the Sith, and then he ends up achieving a form of immortality in the process when he becomes a Force ghost. He ends up becoming or attaining the very thing they desire most by rejecting them, which is the true tragedy of the Sith, you could say. The only way to live forever is to go the complete opposite route, to go all in on the light side. Alright, and moving on now, we have this comment from Alessandro Natali, who said, "Let's be honest, we all hoped that Supreme Leader Snoke was Darth Plagueis in disguise. Knowing that Snoke was a nobody was the sequel trilogy's major mistake." Then there's also this one from Reese Lightning, who said, "You could easily use Plagueis to connect all three trilogies while also fixing the problem of the sequels." And then this one from Supreme Leader Snoke himself, who said, "He's what I should have been in the sequel trilogy. From the beginning it made perfect sense. Plagueis sensed Palpatine's intentions when he wanted to kill him, so he prepared by creating a backup body in the Outer Rim. When Palpatine died and the Empire fell, he was able to expose himself. With the remnants desperate to retake their position, Plagueis would emerge as their leader, taking a new name, Snoke. And so the First Order would be founded years later." And I do like this idea. I liked the idea that Snoke was actually Plagueis, though the problem most will bring up, and I will agree with this problem, is that it kind of undoes the fact that Anakin destroyed all the Sith and brought balance to the Force and fulfilled the prophecy and all that fun stuff. Because yes, balance in Star Wars is the absence of the Sith or absence of dark side users, and I stress users because I'm not saying it's the destruction of the dark side itself or anything like that. Anyway, in my opinion, in order for that to work, for Snoke to be Plagueis to work, Anakin still needed to be a big part of the solution in the sequels, which is why I once loved the idea that in The Force Awakens it was actually Anakin, through his old lightsaber, that was sending Rey to Luke, and that Luke was so obsessed with stopping Snoke and saving his nephew, he was desperately seeking answers and avoiding the fight, not because he was afraid per se, but because he didn't want to have to kill Ben. He wanted to save him like he had once saved his father, but deep down he wasn't sure he could do it this time. And so while Luke is desperately seeking answers, and I know I've gone into this whole theory before, but all the while Anakin is helping Rey and Luke, some dark side remnant of Darth Vader, some stain he's left upon the Force, you could say, is essentially haunting Ben or Kylo Ren, hence the whole "I will finish what you started" thing that he says to the melted helmet of Vader in The Force Awakens. And all this then turns the sequels essentially into a battle via proxy between Anakin and Vader, all the while they need to find a way to stop the First Order, the remnants of the Empire, and to end Darth Plagueis forever, the one who started it all. And to me, that ties all three trilogies together quite nicely. But none of that, of course, happened, so let's move on to this comment from Casper Nilsson, who said, "I've waited so long for this, an A++ character, and that is all thanks to the brilliant novel by James Luceno. Following Plagueis' inner thoughts and feelings in the book helped establish the Sith not just being evil for the sake of it, but to harness and unlock the secrets of the Force itself. I also kind of love how simple-minded the Jedi seem through Plagueis' eyes. His hunger for knowledge and power led him to have a much more nuanced view of the Force than just power that controls the universe and must be kept in some nebulous balance." Alright, and next up here we have this comment from Austin Orozoko, probably saying that wrong, as I probably say most people's names wrong, so you have my apologies if I have or will someday mispronounce your name. Anyway, they had this to say. "As a huge fan of James Luceno's novels focusing on the character, Darth Plagueis, aka Higo Damask, is an easy A rank for me. He gave us an insight into the philosophy and training of the Sith that we have never seen before. The way he groomed a young Palpatine gave us a great sense of his cunning and manipulation, traits which his apprentice would later adopt to even greater effect. It was also so refreshing to see a more scholarly side of the Sith, focused on the mystic aspects of the Force. Almost like a dark side equivalent of Yoda, his research into midichlorians actually justified the concept from a lore perspective, giving some much needed clarity and context to their role in the prequel trilogy. I could go on and on about Plagueis, overall a fantastic character and my personal favorite Sith Lord." Moving on, we also then have this comment from Obsidian Monolith, who said, "His novel and audiobook are great. Even though he only gets a brief mention in the films, he is behind many of the events that happen in the prequels. I would love to see more of him and Darth Tenebrous." Okay, so I don't want to go too deep into the novel here. Instead, I want to give it my highest recommendation to anyone out there who has not read it, whatever that recommendation is worth to you, because it might just be my favorite Star Wars novel of all time, though the Bane trilogy is also fantastic and the original Thrawn trilogy is up there as well. But anyway, if you've ever thought about getting into the EU or just reading a Star Wars book to see what it's like and see if you might enjoy it, I tend to recommend the aforementioned Thrawn trilogy because it is sort of the de facto start of the EU, not to mention it's just a really good trilogy. But you also can't go wrong by picking up Plagueis and giving it a run. It doesn't require you to have any other knowledge of EU books or any other lore, and it's far more than just a story of Plagueis. It's kind of a prequel to the prequels in many ways, and really explains and clarifies many of the things that the prequels never go into, and it even flows right into the Phantom Menace. Again, I cannot recommend it enough, and perhaps in the near future I will do a video about it. I have really been wanting to do more EU content for a while now, along with continuing to, of course, cover the new canon, and there's also my goal of focusing more and more on creative content, of which I have a long list of things I'm both working on and want to eventually work on. In other words, video ideas are never in short supply for me. It's always time that is in short supply. Especially since I have been putting quite a bit more time into my second channel, which is more of a, shall we say, casual and fun discussion channel, a bit more laid back, I guess, a different side of Thor Skywalker that might interest some people, which, come to think of it, might be a good place for some discussions on the EU, especially considering I am finally getting my wife to read some of the books and to get into it, and we may do videos discussing it together over there. But anyway, I'm rambling. Again, do yourself a favor and read Plagueis. Read the book or get the audiobook, whatever you prefer. You will not be disappointed. James Luceno is one of the best, if not the best, Star Wars authors out there. And again, it is a prequel to the prequels, and you will not regret giving it a chance. Alright, and now time for a few final comments before wrapping this one up, starting with this comment from John Connor, who said, Darth Plagueis is one of the most influential characters in Star Wars. The entire prequel trilogy is because of him, down to the pod racing. It blows my mind how much he manipulated to bring the Sith's great plan to fruition. Sidious only followed the outline that he had set, and I think that is awesome. I hope we someday get to see him in live action soon, but the book is more than enough for me to give him an A. Then we have this comment from Gaw, who simply said, the people who gave him an F clearly never read the book. Then also this one from Engineer for the Future, who said, the greatest character to never truly appear on screen. His thematic importance to Anakin's journey is so important and impactful that it literally is irrelevant whether Plagueis really even existed or was a lie from Palpatine. That is true brilliance. His importance is entirely in how his story impacts the choices of Anakin, and parallels and future relationship to Palpatine and their ultimate desire or destiny as master and apprentice. Also here we have a comment from Ben Murphy, who said, my friends and I love the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, but that comes more from Ian McDiarmid's performance and what it means in the story in terms of Anakin. If we were to see him portrayed, then he could easily be an A, but as he is, only by name, I have to give him a C. Next up, this one from Legends and Theories, who said, Plagueis is the first domino that is pushed to cause the events of Star Wars. I wish he had a cameo in Episode 1, but his book alone puts him into the A tier. Also this one from Leo J, who said, for a character that we know so little about, he casts an enormous and menacing figure. Also this one from Sam Rizzardi, who said, I won't repeat what others have said, only point out that it was refreshing to learn that unlike most Sith Lords, he considered lightsaber duels to be boring and tiresome. Then this one from Sarah Cook, who said, easy A. He's one of the best EU characters, and I love his and Palpatine's relationship. That novel will always be canon to me. And then this one from Shiny Hunter Hunter, who said, imagine Star Wars without any mention of him. Would Anakin have still turned into Vader? That alone makes me vote B. And finally, we have this comment from AG Historian, who said, he was a mysterious and intriguing character you never necessarily needed to get to know beyond what was said in Revenge of the Sith. However, adding in the novel for me, it's absolutely an A. He was so interesting to me because he was not your standardized Banian Sith. Not only did he want to even abolish the rule of two, trying to implant the end of this era in the mind of his student, but he wanted to literally cheat death. Had his apprentice been someone else, who knows what he could have become. Perhaps he would have succeeded in his ruthless, mad scientist-like approach to overcome death. Maybe, just maybe, he would have become the most powerful entity in the galaxy. Who knows if he found a way to extend his consciousness into the afterlife, haunting Palpatine. That to me is the best aspect of him. The speculation and mystery surrounding him. Also the memes that Opera House scene gave us cement the grade. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think of Darth Plagueis, or tell me what you think of what I or anyone else had to say about him here in this video. You can also feel free to nominate and or vote for which character we'll do next. Either way, you know what to do. Leave a comment below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, Thanks for watching.